Welcome to Death Valley for the LSU spring game. A sun-spangled sky shines down on this beautiful bayou tapestry. Painted in purple and gold, there's a smell of crawfish and anticipation in the air. A new era in Baton Rouge as Brian Kelly looks to restore the luster to this proud Tiger program. And let's meet the man, the new head coach of the LSU Tigers, about to join our own Taylor McGregor down on the field. LSU taking the field for this spring game. Offense and defense, different scoring system, but they want to simulate what a real game feels like the best they can. And here is Taylor with Coach Kelly.
Thanks, Anish. Look at Coach Kelly in the LSU purple and gold. Coach, this is the closest thing you're going to get to an actual game day. Can you just describe what you're feeling?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not the real thing, but we're trying to make it as close as possible, create an atmosphere. It's nice to have a bit of a crowd here. It's our opportunity to kind of get our guys in a different mindset. You know, practice is practice, but want to see how they handle a game-like situation, and I think it's important to do that so you don't walk into your first game and not know how your guys are going to respond.
As you wrap up spring practice, what do you think the biggest thing that you've accomplished within the confines of your program so far?
I just think being more familiar with me and our staff and how we do things on a day-to-day basis, and quite frankly, the standards, you know, on a day-to-day basis, what to expect from us, and I think that makes it a whole lot easier now going into the summer.
Appreciate your time, Coach. Look forward to myself, Taylor McGregor, Anish Schropp, and Tom Luganbill on the call with you this afternoon. Guys?
Taylor, thank you. Here's our formal introductions. Brian Kelly getting his formal introduction at Tiger Stadium today. So much of this offseason has been about, is Brian Kelly a cultural fit? Sure, there have been some early missteps, but everywhere this guy has gone, he's won big. If he does that, all the other stuff doesn't matter.
Well, I remember several years ago there was a lot of debate on whether or not a guy by the name of Nick Saban was coming down from East Lansing and whether or not he was the right fit. The bottom line is Brian Kelly has won everywhere at every level with a variety of different resources, no resources, ultimate resources, and he's won 284 games prior to his arrival here in Baton Rouge. So the bottom line is you hired a winner. Let's see what he does.
One thing he's going to have to do is figure out who his quarterback is. That will likely run into the offseason, into the summer. It's a four-man derby right now.
It is, and I like all four within the gates. I mean, this is a group that I think LSU could win a lot of football games with, regardless of who they go with. You've got Miles Brennan, who, when he started prior to injury, very, very productive. Jayden Daniels transfers in from Arizona State, was a 3-year starter there. Garrett Nussmeier played 4 games a year ago, was able to redshirt, and then, of course, you got the young guy in Walker Howard. So plenty of options. How do you keep them all happy?
Jayden Daniels, the Arizona State transfer, takes the first snap on the first drive, and Daniels breaks free. We saw him dazzle as a true freshman at Arizona State. First true freshman to start in that program's history. Sophomore year took a little bit of a step back, but the potential is there.
Yeah, he's very, very athletic, as you saw right there. Just 10 touchdowns to 10 interceptions a year ago, and what many perceived to be a very disappointing season for the Sun Devils. Decided to enter the transfer portal and is in a 4-man race now. Daniels
Pumps. And it looks like the defense got a hand on him. There is a flag down as well.
Flag at the 25.
This will bring up third down. The way this works, defense can get 2 points here for a third or a fourth down stop. They get 3 points for a 3 and out. The strength of this LSU defense, it's going to be that defensive line. B.J. Ojulari, big number 0, Mason Smith.
Well, that's the group that traditionally within this program has been dominant. It's been one of the reasons why they've played and competed for national championships. It's the defensive back end, which we'll talk about today, that's going to need some retooling back there, and it's not just going to happen in 15 days of spring ball.
Daniels steps up again, and they'll blow that play dead. Another sack. That's another point for the defense. You saw the scoring a moment ago. Give the defense 3 more for a 3 and out. We talked about that D-line, Lukes. They missed some key pieces up front. You lose Farrell, you lose Logan, but that is where the depth is. In the defensive backfield, they have gone heavy in the transfer portal, bringing in 5 transfers. Peyton Todd punts it away. No returns in this game on kick returns and punt returns, a 41-yard punt. All right, let's go over the rules for this spring game. 15-minute quarters, normal clock play in the first half. There will be a running clock in the second half. Timeouts, 3 per half. We'll have a 15-minute halftime, and the game can end in a tie. Tom, Luke, and Bill.
Well, Vanderbilt's did. So
Yeah,
I guess that's going to be a running trend this spring. I kind of like the position that Brian Kelly and the new staff is taking here, trying to simulate a game day atmosphere. Everything from running out to the tunnel, to the Tiger Walk, to their pregame warm-up, look like a Saturday in the fall, trying to get these kids entrenched into who they're going to be.
Garrett Nussmeier now the quarterback. He'll hand it off to John Emery. He's been battling a bit of a right ankle, but they really think he can bust out. Brian Kelly talked to us yesterday. It'll be running back by committee. You get the sense Emery, maybe Noah Kane, who's going to transfer in from Penn State. He'll get here in the summer. Those two should get the bulk of the carries.
Yeah, I would also add a third there in Trey Bradford.
Sure.
They're really liking the passing game. They think he's really dynamic. It's a position that's fairly deep, and John Emery needs to start playing the way he came out of high school as the #1 ranked running back.
Nussmeier finds Kyron Lacey, Louisiana transfer, breaking tackles up across the 35-yard line. Lacey was the Raging Cajuns' top wideout as a true freshman a few years back. And it points to a point of emphasis in the transfer portal for Brian Kelly. We want to go get guys who are from Louisiana, who weren't recruited by LSU coming out of high school.
Yeah, and really, put a fence around the state. That means making sure everybody knows that they are potentially wanted as an LSU Tiger, and done a great job supplementing their roster so far doing that.
There's Bradford. He's got home run hitting ability. And Nussmeier, the quarterback, and the 4 top quarterbacks on the roster, Miles Brennan, Jayden Daniels, Nussmeier, and Walker Howard, the true freshman, they have all split first-team reps throughout the spring. Nussmeier, certainly great bloodlines. His dad was a terrific quarterback.
And this kid is a riverboat gambler, and I get the sense that this is the kid that offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock and head coach Brian Kelly really like.
What is it that you like about his style?
He just is one of those kids that's got supreme confidence. He's really, really crafty when things break down. And even though he didn't complete that ball, as you see him talking to Brian Kelly right now, even though he didn't complete that football, the difference between him and what we saw with Jayden Daniels is the ball comes out on time. Not holding on the ball, not risking sacks. Get back, get set, get the ball out. That's what these coaches want to see. Who's in rhythm, who's in tune with the offense? Can you get the ball out, throw it to the right spot?
A redshirt freshman from Lake Charles who played in 4 games last year on the quick slant, able to complete. And that's a first down. Jack Besh. A quarter of Besh's snaps came at tight end last year. He's going to be used as a wide receiver this year, even though that tight end room is pretty thin.
It's a thin room, and unfortunately, if you followed Brian Kelly, even Mike Denbrock, who was the offensive coordinator at Cincinnati the last couple of years, tight end is a premium position. And right now, that's an area they need significant help in, not only in talent, but also in depth.
Besh was the team's top pass catcher last year. This one for the end zone. And out of bounds, intended for Chris Hilton. Speedy sophomore, big-time track star in high school.
Yeah, if Hilton could have given his quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier, maybe another yard or two from the sideline, I really like where this ball was thrown. It's a back shoulder throw. The defender ends up losing sight of the football because the back's to the quarterback, and then you come up and you make a play again. Another yard or two that young Chris Hilton's going to learn. He's got to give his quarterback a little more room.
Incomplete third down in the direction of Bradford, and it is of note, Keyshawn Boutte, one of the top wide receivers in this conference. We saw him in a boot during warm-ups. He has not practiced this spring. He will not play in this game. You get Boutte back, though, in the fall, where he was before he got hurt last year. One of the best offensive weapons in the conference.
No question. A potential first-rounder if you can get back, get healthy, and get back up to full strength.
Pressure off the edge, clean pocket, and they got a hand on Nussmeier. Can't tackle the quarterbacks. They're in the red jerseys. Another point for the defense. And there is Boutte on the sideline. He was leading the nation in touchdown catches before a season-ending leg injury last year. He ended up leading the team in receiving yards despite only playing 6 games.
So many explosive plays come from him. He's the veteran of the group. Now, this is a very young and talented group of receivers, but they get him back. Now they got a true go-to guy for whoever the quarterback's going to be.
Big shoes to fill in the kicking game. Cade York is gone. Ezekiel Mata will attempt this one from 48 yards. And the kick is good. Defense over offense so far, 6-3 in Death Valley. Anish Shroff, Tom Luke and Bill, Taylor McGregor, LSU spring game. Miles Brennan about to take the field for the first time today, 6th-year senior. Entered the portal in the offseason. Brian Kelly convinced him to stay. He would have been the starting quarterback a season ago had he not gone hurt right before the season, and that's been the thing with him. If he can stay healthy, boy, the potential is still tantalizing.
It absolutely is, because he's been very, very productive as a starting quarterback here, and I think he made a good decision coming back.
Gets rid of this one quickly, and that's the tight end, Cole Taylor, 6'7", big catch radius.
I really think that with Miles Brennan, this is a young man that understands the value in development. All right, he's been through a lot. He's dealt with injury. He's dealt with coaching turnover. Came into the program about 6'4", about 180 pounds, soaking wet. Has really developed his body. I think he's got a chance to make the most of this. That's why I think he's one of the 4 guys they can win with.
They'll keep it on the ground. It's Josh Williams. It sets up 3rd down. Brennan, a season ago, 2 days before the start of camp, broke his arm on a fishing trip. He fell after his flip-flop got caught between some boards. And that play destroyed in the backfield. 4th down, LSU's defense doing the majority of the damage early on. That was Greg Penn getting in there. And a 3-and-out.
Well, you know, what have we seen both in pass pro as well as in the run game scheme? We've seen some ineffectiveness in the offensive line, and that's an area that they've really got to address. They've decided to address it a little bit in the transfer portal, may do so after spring football, but they've got to get better in the offensive line.
Down to Taylor.
Well, Miles Brennan, certainly no stranger to the quarterback competition. We know that. He said the biggest thing with Coach Kelly that he's appreciated is he said all the quarterbacks are getting a fair shot. He's been open and transparent with all of them from the day he stepped on campus. But I asked him schematically, what's the biggest change under Brian Kelly? And guys, this is not going to be a surprise to you. It's the tight ends. He said this is the first spring he's been at LSU where tight ends are making an impact nearly in every personnel and formation.
Thanks, Taylor. We get to see our 4th quarterback. We were told we'd see all of them. They've split the reps. This is the true freshman, Walker Howard, #1 dual-threat quarterback coming out of high school. Dad Jamie, former LSU quarterback in the 90s, and he finds Chris Hilton, the speedy sophomore, a gain of 8. All right, Tom, Luke, and Bill, you're our national director of recruiting. What did you like on film from young Mr. Howard?
So sometimes you hear that term dual threat and you think that they're not as good of a passer as they are as a runner. With this guy, he's a passer first, runner second, but can create a lot of plays with his legs. Got injured prior to the Under Armour All-America game. As you see him extending the play right here, then making a nice, smart decision.
And as we saw him extend, eyes up the entire time.
Well, you know, the thing that's interesting, if you've noticed here in the first 4 series, essentially what the coaches are doing is they're saying, okay, you get your series. Here's where it starts. It's going to go for as long as you can take it. So if your drive is 8 plays, somebody else's drive is 3 plays, this is how we're going to evaluate this thing. Who moves the football and who moves the chains?
Handoff up the middle, and that's John Emery, and you see the burst that Emery has. Former 5-star recruit. LSU has been waiting on him from the moment he stepped foot on campus. He was dubbed as the next great Tiger running back.
Yeah, and he's shown flashes. He just has not quite yet put it all together. He's a dynamic athlete. You look at him physically and you say, wow, this guy's got the goods. And now he just needs to put together a really, really strong season that's on parallel with his talent level.
Academically ineligible a season ago. Howard, and that's going to be a sack for the defense. Bryce Langston, a redshirt freshman, only played in one game last year.
I tell you, that's the one thing, and we've seen some pressure today. We've seen some run stops. But when you look, just put up the depth chart of the defensive front. When you look at LSU, they've got 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4 deep of young guys they can really, really rely on.
So the usual.
Yeah, and maybe it's been lacking the last year or so, but it looks like it's getting back up to snuff.
Bit of a high snap. Screen pass. That's going nowhere. Josh Williams engulfed for a loss of 3.
You take a look at this defensive line. You have some departures. You lose some production. But everybody else that's coming back not only produced. You look at Ojulari, Mason Smith's potentially going to be a first-round draft choice one day. Kai Wingo comes over from Missouri, and then the youngster in Quincy Wiggins. This is a deep and talented group, and you're seeing that on display here today. Even though it's a spring game, it's a really positive sign for LSU fans.
And they get another hand on Walker Howard.
Xavier Carter, number 17, looks like with the pressure. Again, we just keep naming one name after another name after another name, and LSU just rolls them through.
LSU defense, 5 sacks already on the first 4 drives, and another punt coming up here for Peyton Todd.
It's one of the few spring game scenarios where you actually see a full complement of the kicking game. I mean, Brian Kelly and the staff was not kidding when they discussed what they wanted to get out of today.
No returns, but they did want to see special teams. We'll step aside. We'll see if we can get maybe our first touchdown of the game. On the other side, all 4 QBs have had a turn.
Welcome back here to Tiger Stadium. Coach Kelly with us. Impressions of your 4 quarterbacks through the first drive of each of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a little bit of, trying to get them in the rhythm of the offense. They're all talented, and so sometimes it's execution, I would say that all of them command the offense. They have a good understanding of it. We didn't make any plays, really. So far, the defense looks pretty good.
When you assess the quarterbacks, what are you looking for?
I think just, getting the ball out of their hands, managing the offense, making sure I don't get run over here out on the field. I want to see them under control, running the offense with an authority and not really forcing anything. Let the offense come to them. And because they're all talented. They all have strong arms. They all can see the field very well. Don't do more than what you're capable of doing. And they all have a pretty good sense of that.
The defense, you knew the defensive line was going to be a strong suit coming into this season. What have you seen out of them in just the first couple drives?
They're difficult to match up one-on-one. So, anytime they can get one-on-one matchups, we struggle a little bit. This would be a team that we'd have to double and chip and do things with our backs. We'd have to keep our tight ends in and really try to get some one-on-one matchups on the perimeter.
Appreciate your time, Coach. Guys?
Garrett Nussmeier in his second drive. Thanks, Taylor. He's going to launch one downfield, and that's caught. Jeray Jenkins, 34 catches. Nope, could not hold on. Did not complete the catch.
What a shame is Jeray Jenkins, unfortunately. Looks like he's injured himself, but that could not have been a better thrown football than what we saw from Garrett Nussmeier right there. Gets back, gets set, one hitch up in the pocket, knows where he wants to go with the football, gets the ball out, just couldn't secure it into his gut there, and hopefully that's just a scenario where you maybe got the wind knocked out of you a little bit.
Remember, Boutte is injured. Jenkins, a senior who's increased his production every year with the Tigers. Defense showing blitz. And that one is knocked down. Big number 0, Mason Smith. You talk about a guy who understood the assignment. Defensive lineman wearing number 0. That's how it should be. That number should only be for a defensive lineman.
Well, there's also got to be a few prerequisites, right? So your midsection can't be wider than your shoulders.
Oh, it absolutely can.
No.
Absolutely can.
I think you got to be slim and trim.
No.
You got to be tight. And trust me, he is. He's going to be an absolute difference maker.
The other day in practice, Mason Smith fair caught a punt.
Well, listen, it's a jack of all trades. The more you can do, the more valuable you are, the longer they keep you around.
Could you imagine him on the punt return team? Mason Smith, SEC all-freshman team last year. 4 sacks as a freshman for the Tigers last year. He and the defense leading the way early on in this spring game. In game situations, this game is set up to be a game, not a practice. And they want to see who's nervous, who's second-guessing, who can let it rip, who's making smart decisions.
Yeah, and I think, well, you just hit the nail on the head. Quarterback plays about 2 things, accuracy and decision-making. And they want to see in those 2 areas not only who did it in the previous 14 days of spring ball, but who's going to do it when you set up a game-type environment.
Nussmeier in there on 4th down and able to move the chains with Chris Hilton.
See, again, another on-time throw. Of the quarterbacks to this point, he's shown the most consistent timing, rhythm, and anticipation within the offense. And if you get the ball out, you know, there's going to be a lot of debate about is the offensive line going to be good enough for LSU? Are they going to grow and become the line that you need them to be? But the quarterback can help in pass protection if he gets the ball out of his hand.
Emery forages for 3. From the outside, you're probably thinking this is Brennan versus Daniels.
Oh, no.
Brian Kelly has made it very clear this is not a 2-man derby. Nussmeier very much involved. And listen, Walker Howard's got a long way to go. I wouldn't rule him out entirely either. He's getting these first-team reps.
Sure, and there's not an expectation for him, at least right now.
Exactly.
And that's good, so he can get acclimated within the offense. But I don't think there's any question, while the discussion may be Jayden Daniels, the Arizona State transfer, battling Miles Brennan, somewhat of an incumbent who's been successful when he's played here. Number 13, Garrett Nussmeier, is squarely in the mix.
Cole Taylor with that catch. It's 3rd down, 1 to go. Emery, the running back, he gets the call and able to pick up the first down, upended right at the 31-yard line by Jay Ward.
I don't think they're going to give it to him. Field judge to our side. Looks like he's going to call him a bit short.
4th down, offense will stay out on the field.
See Brian Kelly behind the quarterback getting a little animated there with his offensive line. And you know what he's saying, guys, we got to get a half a foot. Let's go.
And the second effort will get the first down. It's Emery. This offensive line, a huge question mark coming into this season. Only 1 returning starter. That was Cam Wire. But there have been some positives, namely the emergence of true freshman early enrollee Will Campbell.
Yeah.
Brian Kelly told us Campbell's got a chance to be your opening day left tackle or right tackle, and if he's at one spot, you got Wire at the other, and you have bookended your offensive line.
Well, and then if you get Dellinger back, you've really got a chance. So I think that this thing's going to shape up pretty well when we get to July and August.
There's Taylor again. They added some transfers to that unit. Number 52, Tremont Shorts, an FCS All-American at ETSU. Miles Frazier from FIU was one of the most coveted O-line transfers.
Yeah, I think the focus, though, like you mentioned, is going to be on the true freshman, top 5 overall player in last year's class, in Will Campbell. If he can play both sides, he solves a lot of problems.
Armani Goodwin to the 10-yard line. The center position, that is a big position battle. Charles Turner, Jr. from Canton, Ohio in that mix. Fitzgerald West. Marlon Martinez is injured right now.
This is the one group, position group for LSU, where they may not know as much as they'd like to know coming out of spring until we maybe get into the middle or latter part of August in fall camp.
On the ground, left side, Goodwin reaching for the pylon, and he's in for the first score of this spring game. Armani Goodwin, former 4-star. He's got breakaway speed, bit of that home run hitter, the lightning.
Look at how he's built. Who does he remind you of? Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah.
Short, stocky, to the ground, sudden and explosive, great contact balance in the sense that he doesn't go down with shoelace tackle attempts, and then he can really turn on the jets, as you saw right there when he turns the corner.
So if you're scoring at home, that was a scoring drive led by Garrett Nussmeier. Put a check mark in his column.
Correct, and the longest scoring drive of any offense so far here in the first half.
Damian Ramos sends the extra point through. Little something for the offense here, not all defense for LSU.
Well, it was good to see the offensive line get into some type of rhythm. They were able to have some nice balance between run and pass options. Didn't find themselves in 3rd and 7 plus or 3rd and 10 plus. So really opens up the playbook for offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock. And then again, I go back with a 4-quarterback rotation. I go back to getting the ball out of your hands and being efficient in the passing game, because the offensive line needs to be helped out in that regard. And Garrett Nussmeier does that.
You got me?
Let's go down to Taylor.
I'm here with Nussmeier himself. Can you just describe what the feeling is like playing in a game here in spring practice under Coach Kelly?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a different vibe. I was here last year. I'm a redshirt freshman coming up, so I was with Coach O and now Coach Kelly. And it's just been a great change for this program. Much love to Coach O. I miss him, but I feel like Coach Kelly's done a great job since he's came in here. So,
what's been the biggest challenge for you to adjust to this offense that Coach Kelly brings in?
Yeah, it's different. Anytime you come into a new offense, you got to learn the bits and pieces. It's not just the big picture; it's the little things too. So I think that's the biggest part for me, was just kind of understanding the little things to become, get to master this offense, be a game manager, and lead these guys down the field. So.
How would you describe the quarterback competition from within the room?
It's been awesome. It's a great group of guys. All 4 of us are close. So getting to hang out, joke around every day. We push each other to be better. You can't run from competition. You gotta just let it push you. And I think that's the lesson we've all kind of learned this spring.
Will Campbell, what can you say about what he's done for this program in the early parts of him being here?
Yeah, he's been a stud. He's a true freshman that came in here and taking rep with the ones right away. That says a lot. And he works his tail off. So I'm super excited to see where he goes.
How does your defensive line challenge you within the confines of a spring game?
Yeah, I think we got one of the best D-lines in the country. So it's tough. They're good. You can, as you saw, all the sacks. My roommate's actually Mason Smith. So we'll go at it all the time. Even out there on that last drive, we'll go at it in between plays. It's all fun and games, but they're definitely a great group.
What do you feel like your strengths are for this program?
I just try and do my job. I've been learning a lot from Coach Kelly and Coach Sloan about understanding the process and being process-oriented, not result-oriented. And that's been the biggest thing for me, just to do my job, lead the team down the field, and score points.
How often do you talk to your dad about what you're doing every single day?
We talk every day. It's awesome having that input, from my pops. I'll go get a car. It's been awesome. My entire life I've had him to bounce back ideas off of and get some feedback. So our relationship means a lot to me. So.
Awesome. Appreciate your time. Guys, we'll send it back to you.
All right, thanks, Taylor. Garrett Nussmeier, his dad, Doug, Dallas Cowboys quarterbacks coach, played QB in the NFL, former Peyton Award winner out of Idaho. And now we see Jayden Daniels, second to drive for Daniels, took a shot downfield. He's the Arizona State transfer. Josh Williams in the backfield. Daniels will tuck and run, little speed option, and he picks up 4. One thing, Lugs, in this new age of college football with transfers, even for the best teams, it is so hard to accumulate depth at quarterback.
Yeah, it used to be you're trying to figure out how can we keep 4 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. Now you're struggling to figure out how you're going to keep 2. And I think with the spacing of the classes, for example, you've got the extra year of eligibility. Garrett Nussmeier's got a lot of football ahead of him, all right? Jayden Daniels, his window is closing down, so is Miles Brennan. So this thing's going to be a fierce competition, I think, going deep into August.
Incomplete for Lacey. Well, we see it so often. You have a quarterback competition, and if you name a guy too early, sometimes as a coach, you've got to be careful because you don't want to lose the depth. having a quality backup, it doesn't matter who you are. It's not easy in this day and age.
It's not easy, and I think that's one of the reasons why you're seeing, Brian Kelly mentioned that we're charting everything. These kids are not going to have the ability to say, well, I didn't get a shot, or I didn't get the same amount of reps as another guy. So it's going to come down to consistency of performance, which it should.
Now catch.
Brian Kelly, of course, the big story here at LSU. Ed Ogeron was told in October, after LSU stumbled to a 4-3 start, he would not be back at season's end. In November, LSU stunned the sports world by plucking Kelly away from South Bend, where he was Notre Dame's winningest coach in school history. But every step of the way, everywhere he's gone, he's won.
I mean, just look at the numbers, and he's done it at a variety of different places with a variety of different resources. Some places you're not going to have all the bells and whistles. Some places you might have a few of them. And then how does that stack up against other teams within your conference? Are you set up to compete and win championships? And when you look at this program, I think it's pretty clear to see why he ended up being so enticed by this job is you have the resources not to get to the college football playoff. You have the resources here at LSU to win the national championship, and I think that's number one for Brian Kelly.
Miles Brennan in there, incomplete, his second to drive. Luke, you start to diagnose what happened. That 2019 team, one of the best we've seen in recent memory, 15-0. Joe Burrow's the number 1 overall pick, 11-12 since then.
Yep. You have departures within the roster, you have staff changeover, you lose both coordinators in one calendar year. Just a kind of a negative storm that all came together at the wrong time.
Now throw in a pandemic to boot.
Yep.
Goodwin to the 29. From the heights of splendor to the depths of wretchedness, 15-0. Joe Burrow goes first overall. Jamar Chase the following year, a first-round pick. Those two led the Bengals to an AFC championship this past year. And then the staff turnover, really the big ones. You lost Dave Aranda off that championship. He's done great as the head coach at Baylor. Joe Brady goes to the Panthers, off to the NFL, and they never quite recovered. You couple that with what happened last year. Opt-outs, injuries, perfect storm of everything. We saw LSU win the bowl game a season ago. They were down to, 40 guys, scholarship players in that game.
Hanging on by a thread, and sometimes when that thing starts to roll downhill and accumulate, there's no stopping it. And whether it's locker room chemistry, whether it's coach infighting, whatever it is, you got all the clutter that's surrounding the program, it can be very, very difficult to get back on track.
That's why they brought in Brian Kelly to restore the luster here in Death Valley. They're not far removed from success. Brian Kelly with a lot of decisions ahead of him, including quarterback. We've seen all 4. We'll see a little more of Miles Brennan when the second quarter rolls on. Start of the second quarter here in Death Valley, the LSU spring game. Anish Shroff, Tom Luganbill, Taylor McGregor. A third down for Miles Brennan. His second series, the pressure coming. And they get to Brennan in the backfield. Can't tackle the quarterback, but it's B.J. Ojulari, part of that defensive line, which is the strength of this LSU defense. And Taylor McGregor is with one of those stars on that D-line.
Yeah, Anish, Ali Gay, a star for sure. You guys notoriously have been really good on the defensive line. How do you feel like you guys are going to match up against the rest of the league in the early parts of what you've seen in spring?
New coaches and new players and new scheme and defense. I feel like coaches got a good plan of what we got coming in, this coming season. So I feel like we got a pretty good plan, game plan, and players to play the position that we got. So I think coming up against this season, what we got going on, I feel like we got a pretty good defense going in.
What's been the biggest challenge for you adjusting to the new style of defense that they're playing here?
They got me playing multiple, and playing a 4-eye and moving in and out. But I feel like it's all just part of the game. It's just knowing how to play multiple positions. Being able to adjust and knowing how to play. Whether it is a 4 front or 3 front. It doesn't matter. Just knowing how to be able to transition from here and there and being able to play any role that I'm put in.
All right, appreciate your time, guys. We'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Taylor. Ali Gay moved to the United States from Gambia at the age of 12. Second-team All-Conference a couple of years ago, was injured and limited to just 4 games last year. We see Miles Brennan come back out there, so now this is his 3rd series technically.
Yeah, and I think they're getting him now involved with a different rotational lineup within the offensive line and see how he does with a different group up in front of him.
On the fly sweep, that's Besh. And Powers across the 45 to midfield. Going to be about a yard shy unless they're going to give it to him. The official inching up. And that will move the chains.
Now, you look at this group. We've talked about the offensive line and getting that short up, but at wide receiver, whether it's Chris Hilton, Kyron Lacey, all right, Keishon Butte, you touched on him. If he comes back, he's a big returner. Malik Neighbors, Dre Jenkins. There's a lot of depth at the receiver spot for LSU. Yeah,
some really good sophomores as well. Brennan setting up the screen. There's Besh again, dragging a couple to the 44, a gain of 6. Now, the tight end position, though, is one where they will have to address. As you mentioned, in that Brian Kelly, Mike Denbrock offense at Notre Dame, such a crucial component. You think of all the great tight ends they had at Notre Dame in the Kelly era.
Well, yeah, and the great tight ends that Mike Denbrock had at Cincinnati as a wide zone counter team. It's just an area that they need to address. It'll happen through recruiting. It'll also happen through the transfer portal, likely.
Josh Williams, former walk-on, picks up 3, 3rd and 1.
I kind of like number 80, Mason Taylor, though. I think he gives them a chance to be a bit of a movement guy, an H-back, where sometimes his hand's on the ground, sometimes he's a motion guy, use him on bootlegs and nakeds and things of that nature. What they've got to get are some guys that can do the downfield passing game stuff and then match up front versus a defensive front member.
Defense crowding the box, and they're not going to get it. They get the stop. Josh Williams comes up a little short. LSU fans watching, okay. How do we evaluate the offense? Because do you have to grade on a curve with what you're seeing defensively?
Yeah, I mean, I think you do, and I think it's fair to say that there's probably about 120 teams in major college football that would struggle against this defensive front in spring ball or otherwise.
We get some movement on the offensive line. O-line says it's on the defense. Yeah, Jacoby and Guillory.
That's your veteran quarterback senior move with the hard count on 4th and short. And Miles Brennan, credit to him, and really for the offensive line for holding their water.
Hard count in a spring game. Pull out all the stops. Hey,
they said they wanted game-like scenarios and put the quarterback in a position of understanding situational awareness.
Brennan, a 6th-year senior. He's waited his turn. High snap. Ball is loose near midfield. The defense dives on it. And that goes as a turnover. 93, Quincy Wiggins. True freshman. We'll take a break. Change of possession. We'll see if it's Brennan or if LSU makes another quarterback change.
Well, strength of the LSU defense is obviously up front, as we've seen so far today. Garrett Nussmeier right there, the freshman Walker Howard, both under duress, and the depth really showing out for LSU up front. And this isn't too strange from what you see in many spring football contests, but it is very clear to see that if you're going to be a championship-level football team, it's going to start up front on both sides of the ball. And right now, LSU on the defensive side appears to have that shored up with some work to do on the offensive side.
Jayden Daniels comes in for his 3rd series, the transfer. And we get some movement up front. Max Johnson was the starting quarterback for LSU last year. He transferred. Yeah, that's Charles Turner. I was going to say Max Johnson transferred to Texas A&M in the offseason, so that has opened the door to this competition. Brennan, Daniels, Nussmeier, Walker Howard, Probably a clear fourth, the redshirt freshman. All right, so a penalty there. That is Jaquelin Roy.
And that's a discipline penalty.
Yep.
Those are the types of things you see Brian Kelly walking up close to the line of scrimmage, wants to know why in the world would you interfere with the ball and the spotting of the ball and get a delay of game penalty. Those are the types of things that get you beat. Now you mentioned the quarterbacks to this point. Garrett Nussmeier 6 of 11, Walker Howard 2 of 2, Jayden Daniels 0 of 2, and Miles Brennan 1 of 1. And see if Jayden Daniels, the Arizona State transfer here, can connect on a deep one.
He's going to try it, and it's brought in. Brian Thomas Jr. He's part of that stable of sophomore wide receivers, and you see the athleticism.
Yeah, a big target down the sideline. Played in 12 games a year ago, 28 receptions. One of those guys that does exactly what you saw right there. He's a really good contested matchup 50-50 ball guy. And he essentially caught that with his right hand, secured it with his left hand. A nice connection there for Jayden Daniels.
Bradford denied. We've seen LSU receivers do that, right? The one-handed catch.
Oh, yeah, we've seen that plenty of times. This is an opportunity for this LSU offensive line to establish itself, even though it's a spring game. Let's see if it can punch it in on the ground.
That's Daniels, zone read keeper.
That's not
too
fair.
easy.
Wait, you can't hit him. Well, when the quarterback's untouchable, you're not having to be responsible for quarterback keep. A nice, easy touchdown there for the Arizona State transfer. And you see big number 11, Ali Gay, who we just interviewed earlier with Taylor. And he's not paying any attention to quarterback keep.
Ezekiel Mata, left-footed kicker, sends it through. Replays 45 yards on the drive, the big play. Daniels to Brian Thomas Jr., and there is Joe Burrow. Boy, the last few years for Joe Burrow, save for that torn ACL he had as a rookie, been pretty darn good. Wins a national championship at LSU, second year in the NFL after being the first overall pick. Gets the Bengals to a Super Bowl, and he's got the glasses. Joe Cool, huh?
Well, you can do all that stuff as long as you continue to play like it. And he has to this point, and well, that is a young franchise that's turned around really, really quickly. Obviously, when you make the right choice at quarterback, it can change your fortunes, and then you go out and you get Jamar Chase, who he's already familiar with, and now we'll see what happens in the National Football League draft.
Now they've addressed the offensive line a little bit here in the offseason. That's what stuck out to me during the Bengals Super Bowl run. We knew they were deficient on the offensive line, but for a young quarterback to overcome that the way Joe Burrow did, you're saying, wait a minute, once they get some pieces up front, the Bengals are going to be in contention for the next decade plus.
Well, there's no question, but watch him. See, he's a rhythm passer. He gets the ball out of his hand. So if you are struggling, we've talked about that, if you struggle a little bit in the offensive line, help yourself and your offensive line by knowing where to go to the ball and get it out of your hand.
Brennan's pass is tipped and deflected incomplete. Xavier Carter, again, he's made a couple of plays defensively for LSU.
And that's the second or third screen pass attempt for this offense that's been batted at the line of scrimmage. So nice recognition there by Xavier Carter, 17, just a sophomore, of knowing when you're sniffing out that screen, stop pass rushing and get your hands up.
Miles Brennan backed up Joe Burrow for a couple of seasons, rolling to his right, throws on the run. He's got Besh, a gain of 4. As we mentioned, Brennan's a sixth-year guy. Played in 6 games as a true freshman back in 2017. He's waited his turn. First it was Danny Etling, then Joe Burrow. 2020, he was off to a phenomenal start before getting hurt, and then last year never had a chance because he had the injury before camp began.
And you kind of felt this would have been a different offensive output had he not gotten hurt prior to training camp. And hoping to see him get back on track in this 4-man competition.
Only 3 games started in 5 seasons. There's Goodwin out of the backfield. That's where he can be dangerous for LSU this season. Brings it up across midfield, a gain of 23.
You mentioned those 3 games started and what Brian Kelly's trying to do here with this spring game setup where he makes it as game-like as possible. Well, in those 3 games, Miles Brennan played really, really good. 11 touchdowns, just 3 turnovers, was on the verge of maybe having a 500-yard day at Missouri on the day that he went down 3 years ago. And man, I'm telling you, this is going to be fun to watch. But I think he's got some leadership and some passing skills that might give him a little bit of an edge.
Outside, defense, number 90. Trickles up with contact. 5-yard penalty. First down.
That's Guillory. Luke's the other thing. We were down on the field watching the quarterbacks warm up. Remember Brennan as a wiry freshman?
About 180 pounds.
Doesn't look that way anymore.
No, he doesn't. He's reshaped his body, and so is Jayden Daniels, the Arizona State transfer. Was also a rail-thin young man coming out of high school, and he's really developed a little bit.
Near sideline, that's complete. Cole Taylor, only a couple.
So when you look at this, you say, okay, well, what are the LSU coaches going to do with this tape? So they're going to take it with the quarterbacks, and they're going to say, number 1, did you make the right pre-snap diagnosis? Did you make the right post-snap diagnosis? When you threw the ball, did you throw it on time? Did you throw it to the right guy? If you did throw it to the right guy, did you throw it to the right spot? And every one of those things is going to be a box. It's either checked or not checked when they start looking at efficiency in production.
Josh Williams across the 35 for a first down.
And with Miles Brennan, you feel a little bit for him because he was starting to mount a drive last time, and then he has the ball snapped over his head. Not to his fault, but kind of, put a wrench in the works for him, and now he seems to be mounting a nice little second series here.
Brennan's going to take a shot downfield, wants 6. Lacey incomplete, covered well. Kai Hegemon in coverage as we check in with Taylor.
Different guys adding on more weight. When I was speaking with players this week, one of the guys they pointed to in this new coaching staff is the new strength coach, Jake Flint, who came with Brian Kelly from Notre Dame. They're talking a lot about how he's really been big on getting these guys to buy into what the culture is trying to be here under Brian Kelly at LSU. There's accountability groups. Guys get points for doing things the right way, and that's carried over into the weight room. Will Campbell, another guy who's added on weight, about 17 pounds in 4 months since getting here to LSU.
Yeah, Taylor, it's interesting because when you talk to a new coach, they tell you how important it is to build a staff, and so many will tell you the most important guy you hire, your strength coach.
Well, and why is that? Because he and his staff are with those kids more than any other coach during that 3 to 4 month phase between the end of the fall campaign and when you show up for spring football. So they're making the assessments of the coaches saying, hey, who's our tough guys? Who's our guys that show up on time? Who's late? So you depend on them so much for their assessment of players.
Another first down for this offense. It's Noah Nash. He's caught the last 2. And even if you're an LSU or an Alabama where you can recruit 4 and 5 stars year in, year out, you still got to develop those players. That's the developmental component of your program.
You're a 4-star or a 5-star on paper, and then everybody erases it because it's in pencil. Now you start from scratch.
Well, you make them the 4-star, 5-star.
But do you get better? Are you a 4 and 5-star guy in college? That's what matters.
So you're saying the recruiting rankings don't matter?
In many instances, yeah, and I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to say it. We're labeling guys, we're evaluating guys just as the coaches are at a certain phase in their life, and then all of a sudden they make that transition to the next level. It's no different than going from college to the National Football League.
Yeah.
And are guys willing to put in the work, willing to drop their ego, and more than anything, willing to commit to being a great player.
2nd and goal here. Goodwin off the left hip of Brennan. Brennan floats one for Lacey, too high, incomplete. Jordan Tolles in coverage. And this is a defensive backfield. Boy, have they gone heavy on transfers. You know, they lost a lot of talent.
Yep.
Derek Stingley is going to be a high first-round pick. Eli Ricks transferred to Alabama. They've lost some players, not just to early entry, but to transfers as well. Greg Brooks, Jarek Bernard Converse, Joe Fouché, Mekhi Garner, Seven Banks. Josh Williams, the former walk-on, punches it in on the 11th play of the drive.
Good to see Miles Brennan there. Mounts an 11-play drive where made good decisions with the football in the passing game. Had a nice little blend of run to pass there. Josh Williams, as you mentioned, the walk-on that was recently awarded a scholarship. Punches it in.
Ramos, the redshirt freshman from Baltimore, puts it through. The offense has closed to 2. Defense still with a 26-24 lead.
Right.
Can they just tell him, like, hey, do it for the program?
Exactly.
Right.
But they shouldn't have to, right? They shouldn't have to tell him.
Right.
Like, if I'm coming back here and I'm him, I'm expecting to have to do it.
Can we get
just-
Jamar?
And like more than just that.
Yeah. Taylor's going to be left interviewing the red hat.
Fourth drive now for Jayden Daniels as you see the quarterback comparison for the 4 LSU QBs who've seen the field today, and Daniels able to complete a gain of 9. That is Jeray Jenkins. Daniels led this team on a touchdown drive last time out. Miles Brennan has had 4 drives. Garrett Nussmeier, only 2 drives. Walker Howard, the true freshman, just 1. Brian Kelly yesterday would not tip his hand as to if there was a front runner in the quarterback competition.
Oh, got a flag.
Mekhi Garner, the Louisiana transfer, in coverage on Brian Thomas.
I think Mekhi Garner, 6'2", 215, playing corner, can really play inside at the nickel spot too, but proven he is more than worthy of making the jump from the group of 5 to the Power 5. They've been very impressed with him, and he's
The foul, automatic first down.
these 15 days of spring football. You know, going back to Jayden Daniels, the Arizona State transfer, you know, the one thing about him when you studied him at ASU, where he was really, really good, was anything that was play action based, bootleg naked base. Where he really struggled to maintain consistency was when he was in the quick game and the 5-step passing game, and that's where today we've seen a little bit of struggles as well outside of the deep ball for the touchdown.
Yeah, there was another one. Quick game, quick pass, incomplete for Thomas, 3rd down. Why do you think that is?
I just don't know if that's his innate easiest thing to do as a player. You know, he's so athletic and he shows such flashes of being really, really good. I mean, you go back and you look at that game in Sun Devil Stadium where they beat Oregon, and you look at how he played, but it's been difficult for him to replicate those types of games.
Daniels takes off. They did get a hand on him, just shy of midfield. Sets up a 3rd and 3.
Well, that's what he can do. You know, rushed for over 700 yards a year ago, and does a nice job keeping his eyes downfield. And then sometimes when that front door opens, you just got to step through it. Does a really nice job there, tucking the football and getting downfield. So he obviously brings a dynamic that's very unique. And Garrett Nussmeier is probably the other quarterback that's closest to him athletically.
This is Trey Bradford, and he runs out of room. Bradford, an interesting case. Started at LSU, transferred to Oklahoma last June, realized very quickly it wasn't the fit. So he came back to LSU a few months later, only had 2 carries last year, only played in 1 game, but Brian Kelly said that's a guy who could be an eye-opener in this game. He's broken off some big runs in spring practices. He said don't be surprised if you see that today. 4th down, Daniels looking downfield for Thomas, and airmails it out of bounds. Watch out.
Daniels pass. Intended for Brian Thomas. Incomplete. Coverage by 22. Corner.
Change of position. They went for it right there. Anish on 4th and 4, 4th and 5.
Featured items for sale into appendix, jerseys, cleats, and lots of other merchandise.
Garrett Nussmeier will come out for his 3rd drive with 5:20 to go in this opening half.
Joined now by quarterback Miles Brennan. You know something about a quarterback competition. How would you describe what this has been like for you so far this spring?
It's been fun. You know, it's nothing new to me. We've gone out and we've competed every day, and we've made each other better. And that's all that coach has asked, is that we push each other. And if we go out and do our job, everything else will take care of itself.
Why did you want to come back here to LSU under Brian Kelly?
He's an offensive guy, and this is a place that I wanted to be to begin with. And I mean, Coach Kelly came in and told me what his plans were and what he was wanting to do on offense, and Coach Denbrock, and I felt like it just fit me and what I did best, and so that's why I decided to come back.
Dealing with some of the injuries, how do you stay game ready through all of those?
It's tough, mentally, more mentally than it is physically, but really just taking it a day at a time. And I try not to look too far ahead. I'm in the training room every day when I was dealing with the injuries, just trying to get back and help my teammates as much as I can.
You told me the biggest change, at least schematically, was the use of the tight ends. How would you describe the target they've been for you throughout spring?
It's been awesome. I mean, it's a huge target, like I told you earlier. You know, it's just 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". You put the ball in their hands and they'll make plays. So it's really nice having them run blocking and also in the passing game.
Coach Denbrock, what has he brought to this team so far?
The offense, you know, and this is just kind of what he believes in, and this is what he's done at Cincinnati, and they've had a lot of success. And, you know, he had Desmond Ridder at Cincinnati, and he brings a lot of energy, though, and a lot of passion. He enjoys what he does, and he wants to make sure that we understand and really get a grasp of the offense as much as he does.
Have you gotten to catch up with Joe Burrow?
I did yesterday. I saw him yesterday. He came by football. It was good to see him. I'll see him after this.
What does it mean to have notable alumni like himself back in the building supporting you guys today?
It's awesome. You know, it means a lot that, you know, I mean, with their busy schedules to come down and support guys. I mean, I was thinking about it the other day. There's maybe only 7 or 8 players that are on the teams currently that played with him. You know, so just for him to come back and see a lot of new fresh faces speaks a lot about him and the rest of the guys.
You've been through a lot of change at LSU during your tenure. How would you describe the culture that Coach Kelly is bringing here and how it's different?
Accountability and having a purpose for everything you do and attention to detail all around our facility. It's all about accountability and being accountable to each other and respecting the brotherhood. And if we do those, everything else will take care of itself.
Again, you've been through some quarterback competitions before. How valuable is a spring game for a guy like yourself to showcase what you can do on the field?
Yeah, I think it's very important. And I mean, we've been working all spring to come out here and display what we got. And, you know, it's my 5th spring game, so, you know, this is nothing new to me, but I just got out there, I'm having fun with the guys, and we're making the best of it.
You told me this week that within the confines of the room, you genuinely feel like you're cheering for each other. What has it been like here watching guys get different snaps?
Yeah, I mean, that's all part of it. You know, I mean, there's going to be one starter at the end of the day playing against Alabama, Florida, Georgia, and all those teams, and we're the guys who are going to keep them going. You know, when you come off the sidelines, it's your brother sitting right there next to you cheering you on. So this is just kind of a little taste into the future.
The defensive line certainly showing their skills here today. How much have they challenged you guys throughout the spring, even though they can't tackle you here today?
Right, a lot. You know, and that's a really dominant group. You know, especially on the defensive line and on the defense. But they make the offensive line better, and they'll make us better. You know, whether it's pocket presence, movement, things like that. So, but yeah, credit to them.
Appreciate your time. Thanks so much, guys. I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Taylor. You're one of the things that Miles Brennan hit on, attention to detail. That's something Brian Kelly's been harping on, as that one is caught by Josh Williams. down to the 1 yard line. Great throw by Garrett Nussmeier. This is Nussmeier's third drive. He led LSU on one scoring drive earlier.
Well, and keep in mind he had that drop earlier on the corner route, which was a beautiful throw. Has a little wheel route to the back out of the backfield right here. Big 2-7 right there, and Josh Williams, who's already scored a short yardage touchdown on the receiving end there. You know, it's interesting to hear from Miles Brennan because rarely do we see 5th and 6th year quarterbacks. Rarely do we see them when they haven't entered the transfer portal, and you can just tell by listening to him. He's been through and seen it all, and he's still up for the fight.
A touchdown run by Josh Williams. So Nussmeier has led a couple of touchdown drives. Every quarterback has led a scoring drive, and I think the betting money might be on a Brennan or a Jayden Daniels. Nussmeier may have longer odds. I would not count him out of this derby.
Yeah, I don't know. This is just me and from a treetop level. And again, I've been around these guys since they were 15 years old and have some familiarity with them. But it's clear in my mind when you're watching these guys that Garrett Nussmeier has a little something. Everybody says that it factor. Well, how do you define it? I don't know how you define it, but you can feel it, you can kind of see it. And then the other thing I think Brian Kelly has to really take into account in all of this, he's got to get a pulse of the locker room. Who responds to which quarterback?
How important is that?
I think it's critical because I think it lends to team chemistry and how guys respond to if a bad play is made. What does the quarterback do? What's their body language like? All of those sorts of things.
You played the position, so I ask you, when you're in that locker room and let's say there's a consensus that the best quarterback on the team isn't the guy who's the starter, how much of that is talked about? How much of that is part of the chatter that goes on that we don't see?
Big time, and I can tell you from my personal experience, I was in a battle in spring football. All right, I was battling against an incumbent starter. And while I might have been the better player and the better performer to win the job, which I did not win the locker room. I did not have the locker room, and I can tell you firsthand, it hurt our football team. It did. And so I do think it's important. I do think it has merit. And the coaches know that. But I think the hard thing is, it's one thing if you got one or two guys that you think might be pretty decent. It's very clear they're 4 deep at quarterback here.
Yep.
And they've got 2 young guys in Nussmeier and Walker Howard. They've got a real chance. And then you're now dealing with also Jayden Daniels, the ASU transfer, and of course Miles Brennan, who probably brings the most to the table as far as seniority.
The challenge in college football today is not to be 4 deep at quarterback in the spring, but can you be 4 deep at quarterback in the fall? It's almost impossible. Let's go down to Taylor with Coach Kelly.
Thanks so much, Anish. All right, Coach, you wanted to see some sort of presence in a game-like atmosphere from your quarterbacks. Is there a guy who stands out to you?
I thought, Miles Brennan showed some experience that he has. I thought he managed the offense well, but made some plays down the field. We didn't make a couple of plays for him, but he's very accurate with the football, and it looks like a veteran quarterback out there. Garrett, I thought, did some really nice things in throwing the football. I don't know that sometimes guys aren't in the right place for these guys. So to stand here and evaluate the quarterback sometimes is very difficult because execution is about route running and being in the right place and protection. So sometimes it's not quite fair to do that to these guys. But I think all of them manage. I think for me, Taylor, the tight end, we've been looking for a tight end. We talked about that in the production meeting about finding a tight end. I thought he stood out in the first half as a very reliable ball catcher for us. And I thought the running game, the guys ran really hard. Amani Goodwin looked really good running the football. He's a guy that's difficult. And you saw the defensive line, can certainly get after the quarterback. So those are the things that really stood out to me in the first half.
As you try to emulate a game-like atmosphere when you go into the locker room, is there a message that you'll tell these guys?
I'm going to give my best ever halftime speech No, I mean, really trying to talk about, what we do at halftime, our slight adjustments, and, that's overrated, right? I mean, you're making a couple of adjustments, and you're really just trying to keep them to the standards in terms of coming out in the third quarter with great effort and great enthusiasm.
Appreciate your time, Coach. Anish?
All right, thank you, Taylor. Halftime score, it's the offense that's overtaken the defense, or offense. 31-28. Defense controlled most of the first quarter, a little more offense in the second quarter. We've seen a lot of Jayden Daniels, Miles Brennan, Garrett Nussmeier. More to come in half number 2. Defense. A unique scoring system today in this LSU spring game. Brian Kelly, first-year head coach at LSU. The biggest question mark from a positional standpoint, quarterbacks, and we've seen 4. We've seen a lot of Miles Brennan, Jayden Daniels, and Garrett Nussmeier.
Yeah, and I think Garrett Nussmeier's made an impression. He's made a lot of plays. He's gotten the ball out of his hand, as you can see right there. Made a beautiful throw on the deep corner route that unfortunately was dropped. But he's made good decisions. I think that's the thing, is we haven't seen risks being made with the football from the young freshman. He had a chance to play 4 games a year ago and still able to redshirt. And then you've got the 6th-year senior that's kind of had a bit of bad luck. I go back to what Brian Kelly said before the end, or before he went into the locker room at halftime, that it's kind of the total picture, right? You got to have the receivers on the same page and the tight ends and the offensive front. But what I liked about Miles Brennan today is he had a couple of things not go his way. He didn't sulk. He just lined up, took the field the next time, and let it rip, and then ended up leading 2 scoring drives.
Brennan has led a couple of scoring drives. Garrett Nussmeier has led a couple of touchdown drives. Jayden Daniels had a beautiful deep ball to Brian Thomas that led to a scoring drive where he walked it in as well. LSU spring game, Anish Shroff, Tom Luganville, Taylor McGregor. You've heard from her on the sideline today. A lot of excitement surrounding this program. We talked about it in the open. Brian Kelly, right, first-year head coach. He leaves Notre Dame. So much made of the fit. You said it earlier. Was Nick Saban the right fit way back when he came from East Lansing to Baton Rouge?
Obviously he was, but and also keep in mind, at that time, Nick Saban had not won anywhere near as many games as Brian Kelly had to this point. So I think you got to let it play itself out. If you win, you win. And if you can win at some of the places he's been at, and now you come down to a place at LSU with fantastic resources, you've got a chance, I think, to have a really, really special program. And one of the things I think is so important, because I think the kids have responded to it, structure, discipline, a plan. What is the standard and the expectation that you are expected to uphold? Because players want structure. They want discipline. They want to know when they're supposed to be somewhere and when they can't do something. So they always know where they stand, and I think that's what Brian Kelly and his staff are trying to install, certainly during the offseason, but in particular these 15 days of spring practice.
Kelly's track record at Sterling, Grand Valley State. He won championships there. Goes to Central Michigan. Got that program going. Cincinnati. They played in a Sugar Bowl.
Sure.
Notre Dame takes them to a BCS championship, twice to the college football playoff. He has won and won big at every stop.
Every single stop. And the one thing that I point to with a job like this are the resources. Now the resources that he has had, when you take a look at that record, all right, look at Central Michigan. 2 years later, they were 9-4, all right? So there is a process. There is a build. And by the way, that Cincinnati team beat an SEC team in the Sugar Bowl. And I look at the Notre Dame tenure as maybe one of the best coaching jobs in this particular era, because that is a difficult job. You're a national recruiter. You're a national brand. Expectations huge. You've got some academic standards that maybe some of your competitors don't have, all right? And from a proximity to athletes, it's a whole different ballgame being at LSU than it is being there. There's no other Power 5 competitor, Anish. Yeah. So Brian Kelly can throw a rock outside of his office and hit a great player in any direction.
Well, we've seen that. LSU's won 3 national titles since the year 2000, 03, 07. Yep. And then they got one 2019 with Ed Ogeron. 12 SEC championships, the latest coming in 2019. 4 national championships. And again, those 4 national championships, the last 3 have come with 3 different head coaches. So you can win here. They're not that far removed from winning and winning big. 2019, 11-12 since that last championship. But, you know, the challenge for LSU and really anybody in the SEC, you're not only in the toughest conference in college football, you're in the toughest division in the toughest conference, and you're in the same division as Alabama.
You are. You've got tremendous home field advantage. As I mentioned, you've got instant access to elite players, no other Power 5 competitor in the state, and you border on states. Texas, obviously, and then you border on Mississippi. You can get down into the panhandle of Florida that all have great players. You're a national brand. To me, this is one of those jobs where in any given year, you're in contention. You are in contention.
Does it worry you that when you look at the rest of the division, Texas A&M ascended, Ole Miss under Lane Kiffin ascended, Arkansas was one of the surprise teams last year under Coach Pittman. That's another ascending program. Alabama is always at the top of the college football world anyway. And, you know, Auburn's had some moments here in the last 10-plus years as well.
There's no easy weeks.
No.
Right? And when you look at the road contests, particularly with the schedule in the first year under Brian Kelly, they've got to go to some difficult places. At College Station, in the swamp at Florida, at Auburn, always a difficult place to play. And then you've got that stretch of Ole Miss, Alabama, Arkansas, all in a row there. And the thing that's interesting to me about this, Anish, look at that opening game versus Florida State.
In New Orleans.
In New Orleans. So 2 years ago, somebody would have said, all right, Florida State and LSU are going to play in 2 years. Who do you think's the favorite in that game? Would anybody have said Florida State? Not saying that they're going to be, but now all of a sudden that gap is far more narrow than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, that turns into a pivot point game, really, for both fan bases, for both teams.
Florida State's getting better.
You know, you look at that LSU schedule, you get that season opener against Florida State. It's going to be a virtual home game for LSU.
No doubt.
In New Orleans. You're looking at maybe a 4-0 start before you go on the road to the Plains.
Well, and you get to get settled in with whoever your quarterback is in front of your home crowd. And I think that's important in the early portion of the schedule to get that rhythm, get some confidence, right? You know, get feeling good. And really, to be honest with you, some of it's kind of a recipe of luck, right? Little bit of injuries or lack of injuries. Then maybe we have a transfer come in and becomes a great player that maybe you didn't anticipate. You need a lot of things to kind of come together sometimes.
Yeah, this is an attractive place to come to, no doubt. Smell of crawfish in the air. It smells like anticipation as well. It's the Brian Kelly era now here in Death Valley. We'll be back with the second half from Tiger Stadium. The LSU spring game from Death Valley, offense against defense format. Anish Shroff, Tom Luganbill, Taylor McGregor with you on this gorgeous Saturday here on the Bayou. Let's check in with Taylor before the start of half number 2.
Well, Anish, as we continually talk about what Coach Kelly is bringing to this program this week, I was speaking with linebacker Mike Jones Jr., and in his simplicity, he said, look, he's getting us to focus on the little details that eventually add up. So things like taking your vitamins every single day, taking wellness quizzes every single day, and what they've done is created accountability groups to the size of 7 to 8 guys that are a team, and they compete against other groups within the team. And so every single day you get points if you take your vitamins, and you lose points if you don't. And so those things add up, but it's created a genuine competition amongst guys, and it's also allowed them all to be accountable to those little things that, like I said, eventually add up.
Well, the real question, Taylor and Anish, is are they Flintstone vitamins?
If they are, I'm in.
You're in. I'm in too. I'm with you.
Flintstones or gummies?
Gummies or crunchies?
I'm a big fan of the gummy vitamins.
Oh, yeah, but I'm an original Flintstone kid as an 80s kid.
Oh, the Flintstone vitamins were clutch.
You know, she's so right, though, and Mike Jones relaying that.
How about this kickoff, huh?
I think he could return it. He's
so had a 2-on-1.
The accountability side of things and putting it on the shoulders of your players in the sense that we're going to give you the structure, we're going to give you the blueprint. Then we're going to let you guys decide who comes to the forefront. And, you know, it's interesting. Things as simple as being on time, being where you're supposed to be. Those are difficult things sometimes for young people. And when you start instituting it, it starts to become routine, you start to see results.
Organizational health has been a popular go-to phrase for Brian Kelly. There's Garrett Nussmeier, first drive of the second half, and that one nearly intercepted by Jay Ward. Had a couple of picks last year, the safety. Rebuilt defensive backfield.
Yeah.
They lost a lot. Obviously, Stingley's the big one. He might be a top 10, top 12 pick in the draft next week. But they added a lot of transfers. Fouché coming over from Arkansas along with his roommate at Arkansas, Greg Brooks. You get Jarek Bernard-Converse from Oklahoma State. They really like Mekhi Garner from Louisiana. And then Sevyn Banks from Ohio State.
Correct.
Big-time recruit coming out of high school. Bradford busts this one loose. Brian Kelly predicted that he would have a big run or two in the bag, and that's good for 37.
Again, a guy that's not going to go down to shoelace tackle attempts. Really nice job in the zone blocking scheme here up front by LSU, and that's exactly how you'd want to draw it up. It's going to look good tomorrow in the tape room, and you know, now you get a big chunk, you get some rhythm, the young quarterback plus territory, your whole entire playbook's open off of one big explosive play.
Nussmeier will throw. Downfield wants Malik Neighbors, who hauls it in. Another one of these talented sophomore wide receivers. Took a lot of snaps in the slot last year. He'll see time on the outside this year.
Yeah, and this throw, again, absolutely beautiful. I mean, you could not throw that ball in any better of a spot, and he's done that twice now. We saw it in the first half. The first half, the ball was dropped, but, again, anticipation, throwing mechanics, getting the ball out on time. Garrett Nussmeier's been impressive.
Under center, play action. Nussmeier back of the end zone, touchdown Besh. Now, those were some good-looking throws, and you see a little swag there by Nussmeier as well. You mentioned gunslinger. That fits him so well. He plays with confidence. He plays with a swagger.
He does. You can just sense it. We talked a little bit about that it factor, and he's young. I think that's the thing you've got to be excited about if you're an LSU fan. If he's not the guy right now, it's clear he's not going anywhere, right? And I would hope not, because he's going to have a lot of football here in front of him. Nice little boot action, and throws it deep and high to the back of the end zone where only his target can get it there, and really impressed with that drive. Wow.
So if you're keeping score, 4 drives now for Nussmeier, 3 touchdown drives. He's looked the best of the 3.
He has, and he's been, again, the consistency of performance. Who moves the chains? Who gets the ball in the end zone? At the end of the day, that's going to be heavily scrutinized. And again, it's a spring game.
And there's more to it, right?
There's more to it. Yeah, there's more going on around this. Brian Kelly told us right before he went into the locker room that, you know, everything else has to add up too. Somebody has to be where they're supposed to be. If they're not, it can create dysfunction. But, you know, as far as just a single performance and doing what the young man's been asked to do, it's been a very nice day for him.
Now, Brian Kelly's going to evaluate, okay, how much of what Nussmeier did came against the 1s on defense versus the 2s. When you look at the other quarterbacks, did a drive that stalled out, did it end because somebody missed an assignment? And did a wide receiver run the wrong route? There's more components to this, but what Brian Kelly wanted to see more than anything today was how his quarterbacks fared in a simulated game. He said, we wanted to make this feel like a game, not a practice, so I can see, hey, when there's live bullets, who's willing to enter the fray?
Who's willing to enter the fray, and who answers the toll? Who delivers when it's not easy and you got a bunch of people in your face?
Jayden Daniels. Just got to get him with one hand. It's not two-hand touch on the quarterback.
But still, that was a 12-yard gain before anybody on the defense even recognized he had the ball. And again, that's the element that he brings that's a little bit unique to the other 3 in the competition, and that includes Walker Howard, the true freshman, who's probably the second best athlete of the crew behind Daniels.
And Luke, that makes you think. Let's say it's Brennan or Nussmeier who wins the job. Daniels could very well have a big role on this team because of that ability.
Yep, and keep in mind, if something like that were to happen, don't know if it's going to, not sure, but again, I go, if that were to happen, he can't transfer again without penalty.
Yes.
Right? And so that's something to consider. But I want to look at that throw right there, because what did we talk about has been an inconsistent struggle with him during his time in Tempe at Arizona State is the 3 and 5 step drop back passing game where you're just playing pitch and catch. That should have been a completion. That's a scholarship Power 5 considered to be easier throw.
Up the middle, a couple of broken tackles. Josh Williams still going, still churning. And he's to the 38-yard line, a gain of 23. A couple of long runs by the running backs here in this third quarter. Running clock.
See a little pep in the step. I'm liking what I'm seeing from these running backs, and I think Brian Kelly touched on it, that a lot of tough physical, hard-nosed runs. These running backs run behind their pads. They're always falling forward and breaking arm tackles. I love it.
Up the middle again with Williams, and remember, Lukes, they've got one more running back coming. That's Noah Kane, the Penn State transfer.
Right.
What will he bring to the LSU backfield?
Certainly brings some big play possibilities, because he's a guy that was locally from here in Baton Rouge, was recruited by everybody, including the staff here. I think he brings some explosiveness, a little bit like how Coach described Trey Bradford. In some regards. You know, we keep talking about these backs breaking tackles. Brian Kelly's not going to be too happy with this defense and the lack of tackling.
Well, one of the things that he said, that's an area where they have struggled with, but you put struggle in quotes because during practice they have limited tackling.
Sure.
And they've told their defensive players that. So some guys have been tentative. At the end of the day, you want to be healthy for the games that do matter.
Well, you absolutely do. As we get a little break in the action with a defensive injury. At the top of your field right there.
It's Kai Hegemon.
Yep. Looks like he's getting off the field. Nice little drive being mounted by Jayden Daniels, former Arizona State transfer, as the clock winds down on the third quarter.
On 1st and 10, Daniels taking a shot deep, and it is incomplete and about 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage. We've got Brian Kelly. He's got a microphone on. Taylor McGregor, you're right there with him.
You got to go get that, right? You got to go get it, right? Go attack it, right? Go get it. Go get it. You got length, right? Use your length.
Coach, Jayden Daniels, what are you seeing on his footwork, especially on that last play?
Yeah, you know, he's got some new footwork, and he's a little bit well, that was better, but he's a little bit out of balance and wasn't getting on top of the football. That was a little bit better. And, you know, so you saw some throws where he was on top of the ball, out of balance, nose of the ball down into the ground. And it's just a product of some new footwork that he's, you know, trying to get used to. So you saw some throws that are a little bit uncharacteristic. That was much better. He got on top of the ball. Now, you know, we got to go make that play. I mean, you know, I think Lacey's got length. He's got to use his length. Go up and get the football and make that play.
How important is situational type football right here, the situation in the red zone?
Yeah, we do it a lot. I mean, you know, everything is about situational football now. That's a good throw over the top. And, you know, Besh did a really good job of setting that up, you know, and getting some width away from the defender. And that's a good throw by Jayden in that situation.
The tight end, I know Besh has been used in both roles, but what have you seen out of that position so far?
You know, as I mentioned to you before we came in at halftime, I mean, I thought Kobe Taylor's done a really nice job. You know, Jack Mashburn's got a bit of a tightness in his lower back, so we've been really cautious in using him. But if Taylor can give us the length, and we talked about him being a situational player, but if he can give us, you know, and move the chains and be that kind of player for us, do some things in line, we're going to be okay if we can find another guy that can be a bit of a, you know, more physical player, because Jack Besh can do some things on the perimeter for us too.
Kicking game, just the repetitions that these guys can get in spring, how valuable are those?
No doubt. I mean, you know, you saw we've been pretty consistent, you know, very clean in terms of extra points, field goals. We made a field goal. We kicked it off with you know, I would say, you know, in this kind of breeze, you know, we're doing the things necessary to be efficient with it, and we'll have some more competition going into the summer.
What do you want to see out of your offense in the next quarter and a half here?
Well, I thought the last two drives were extremely efficient. I'd like to see our defense come up with a couple of stops.
Thanks, Coach. Anish?
All right, Taylor, thank you.
Great insight there from Coach Kelly.
Yeah, just to see his perspective and watching it in real time.
Right, and listen, I would agree with him on Jayden Daniels' footwork. I think that's been something that has plagued him a little bit throughout his career, but you know what? The accuracy of that football that he threw, that should have been caught for a second long ball touchdown. And then what does he do? The ball's dropped? Forget about it. You can't control that play. Move on to the next one, throws the touchdown to Besh. So nice to see Jayden Daniels there respond.
Running clock. We come up on 5.5 here in the third quarter. Miles Brennan now in the game, and he'll hand it off on first down. It's Bradford again, busting another one. Give him about 13, first down for the offense. Clock almost irrelevant. This game is scheduled for a 2-hour window, so we have about 16 minutes of actual time, and then the game will end regardless of what that clock says on the bug. Fifth drive for Miles Brennan. We've heard from Brennan today. We've heard from Garrett Nussmeier. That one incomplete for Stores. And we hear now from Jayden Daniels, who's with Taylor.
That's right, Anish. All right, this weather in comparison to Phoenix, what do you got?
It's still hot, but you know, the humidity, you know, that's something I got to get used to, but I love it out here.
Why LSU for you?
What Coach Kelly doing, you know, I want to have the chance to come out here, win the national championship, play on a big stage, and play for a coach like Coach Kelly.
He talked about your footwork. Can you describe just what you've been working on as of late?
Yeah, just being more consistent with everything. You know, coming here, talking to Coach Kelly, Coach Sloan, and those guys, real big quarterback guys. So being able to just go out there, and learn from them. You know, Coach Kelly's been harping on that. It's been big. So transition from day one to now, it's day and night.
We've seen the use of your legs here today. Just how valuable do you think that part of your game is going to be to this offense?
It's going to be very valuable. You know, be able to make something happen, you know, 5 yards if a play is not there, and have an explosive play, explosive run. You know, that's something that Coach Kelly value, and, you know, I'm happy to bring that asset in my game here.
There's been a lot of talk about the O-line, some of the turnover there. How would you describe what you've seen out of those guys throughout spring?
Those are my guys, hard workers. You know, from day one to now, you can see just the chemistry and the communication up front. You can see how much work they put in from day one to now. You know, I got here pretty late, so I didn't know those guys before, but, you know, I just know that they're hard workers. They're ready to go to work every day.
What's been the most challenging part learning a new offense?
It's really just getting comfortable with the guys. You know, being able to really gel with those guys in a short amount of time. I feel like they did a great job embracing me, and I did a great job embracing them. So, you know, I'm here now. You know, I'm happy to be here, happy to be in Louisiana and play for LSU.
How do you feel like you've grown as a quarterback since being here?
It's a different role. I was uncomfortable. Not really. You know, I've been at ASU for 3, almost 4 years. So, you know, it's kind of being uncomfortable coming out here, and you got to learn yourself as a person, as a football player. But, you know, I feel like it's the best decision I made for myself. And what Coach Kelly and them have heart to me, you know, just come out here and being a leader. Those guys going to rally around, you know, genuine guys, so just being myself.
The word we keep hearing when describing Coach Kelly's culture here is accountability. How have you seen guys be accountable to what he's trying to do here?
Yeah, you know, the accountability part, he really goes out there, he harps at, you know, habits and accountability. You can see guys, the way they approach practice, the way they approach meetings, you know, that's something he really wants us to see in order to win the championship.
I just want you to watch this offense here and tell me what you see.
You know, it's explosive offense. We got a chance to be an explosive offense. You know, Coach Denbrock and what he did at Cincinnati, Coach Kelly and his offensive mind expertise. So, you know, I'm happy direction we're going in. I can't wait for fall camp.
How valuable was today for you, again, as you just learn this new offense and get comfortable with the playmakers around you?
I feel like it was valuable for the fans to see us in person for the first time. You know, it was a great turnout. People watching on TV, you know, just seeing what we're made of. You know, we've been at it for 15 practices now. So, you know, from day one to now, I can see we getting more comfortable and getting more used to the offense.
Did you get chills on the Tiger Walk?
I did. You know, just come out here, it's something different. Just the culture and the atmosphere here is very different. You know, it's not like the West Coast or Pac-12 football. You know, SEC, they really care about football.
Have you gotten to try crawfish yet?
I have. I had crawfish before. You know, I'm ready to after this spring game to get some more.
How do you enjoy it?
Man, you know, you gotta adjust to the culture. You gotta adjust. I mean, I'm not from over here, but you know, I had to adjust to where I'm living at now.
Any other type of Cajun food that you've liked?
I've been jambalaya, gumbo, all those type of stuff. So, you know, I'm happy to be out here, happy to eat some good food.
What else is different about living in Baton Rouge?
You could just tell just the scenery, everything. You know, it's not like the West Coast. Everybody really is more close and more condensed. West Coast is spread out and big. So, you know, it's just different in the weather. The weather is totally different.
A little bit more humid. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much, guys. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Taylor. Yeah, San Bernardino, California, and Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Well, that's a dry heat.
That's
a dry heat. Yeah.
These running backs have played well, especially in the second half. We've seen Bradford, Goodwin, break off a couple of long runs. Bradford's got 85 yards. Third down, Brennan takes the snap. Looking for 6, he wants Neighbors, it's tipped and caught. The concentration by Neighbors after that ball was tipped by Sage Ryan.
Hey, listen, sometimes you just got to go out and make a play, right? You just got to find a way to keep your focus. That was what was done here. Really one of the few, it's a jump ball throw, which you don't have a problem with if you're going to make the ball throw in an area where your guy has the best chance. That ball was thrown short to the inside, but look at Neighbors. Great focus and concentration.
28 catches last year, 400-plus yards. By all accounts, he's had a terrific spring leading up to this game, and we've seen him make now a couple of nice catches. We will take a quick break and then come back with the conclusion of this LSU spring game. Fourth quarter in Baton Rouge, and a new quarterback for this drive. It's Walker Howard. He saw one series in the first half, a highly touted true freshman. And he'll get one here maybe to finish things off. Walker Howard fractured his leg during his senior year, also had thumb surgery in the offseason. But this was a consensus top 30 recruit.
Yep.
Lugs, you had him as the #1 dual threat quarterback coming out of high school. What is it about his skill set that should have LSU fans excited?
Very similar to what we've seen from Garrett Nussmeier today. Kind of just that riverboat gambler style of play. Really good athlete. Can make all the throws that you need him to make. And again, you see there the anticipation, knows exactly where he's going with the football. That's another one of those instances right there, like Brian Kelly had said going into the locker room. You need help too, right? If you throw one, you got to catch it. You know, those types of things. So all of that stuff goes into account. There's his dad, Jamie, sure.
Yeah, good bloodlines, Jamie, former LSU quarterback, 92 to 95.
He's one of those kids, too, that is not going to be thrown into the fire. I mean, barring something catastrophic at the quarterback position here, he's going to be able to learn at a reasonable rate and get developed at a reasonable rate.
In the age of the transfer portal, that seems to be harder and harder to do.
There's no question, because everybody wants to play right away. Even more dangerously, everybody thinks they should be playing right away. And in most cases, that's not reality. And you lose the vision of how important it is to learn and grow and mold yourself into a player as opposed to just being thrown to the wolves.
You know, you start to think back, right? If you fast forward the timeline, does a Matt Leinart sit behind a Carson Palmer?
Right. I mean, that's a really, really good question. Or does he say, yeah, heck with this, I'm going somewhere else?
Go somewhere else where I play right away. But how much was a guy like Leinart in college helped by sitting and watching a Heisman Trophy winner in front of him, watching a future pro, a future Pro Bowler?
Well, I think, and the other thing, too, it was such a different time. Even back then, even in the early 2000s, late 90s, going back to the late 80s, early 90s, you didn't expect to play a quarterback. You knew no matter how good you were redshirt. Yep. And then maybe when you came out your redshirt freshman year, you might find yourself in the mix. But there probably wasn't so much of an expectation to be the guy. And now, you know, everybody wants it to happen yesterday.
When Johnny Manziel burst on the scene, what was that, 2012?
Yeah, redshirt freshman year.
Redshirt freshman, he wins the Heisman. That was one of the first big eye-openers. Whoa, look what he's doing as a redshirt freshman.
Yep.
But the other side to this, and you see it, you cover recruiting, are quarterbacks coming out of high school more polished now than ever before?
Yeah, I think they are, because not only do they have so many more resources at their disposal, whether it's 7-on-7, whether it's private quarterback coaches, whether it's camps and combines, I think they're also just being much better coached. I think the high school coaching in this country over the last 20 years has really, really improved.
Incomplete. Howard taking a shot downfield. Wanted Lacey.
Howard's pass intended for Lacey.
It's one of those throws he wish he could have back, Anish, because he's got an open guy. He's on time. He just misses it.
So if we're looking at points per quarterback possessions,
Second down 10.
Daniels has produced 21, Nussmeier 17, Brennan 14. As we get down here to the last few minutes of this game, ignore that 10-minute plus on the game clock. We've got about 4 minutes of real time left. What are your expectations for LSU and Brian Kelly's first season?
I would be able to answer that question, I think, more accurately once I know what takes place in the transfer portal over the next probably 3 to 5 weeks. What areas are they able to address? Who comes, who goes?
Yeah.
Because that's going to have a huge, significant impact. A little bit more air for that one for Walker Howard. That's what he'll be coached up on, I think, tomorrow in the film room. But it's going to have such a significant impact on everybody. You watch, at the end of this month, there is going to be a mass flood into the transfer portal. All of these kids are keeping tabs. They're counting reps. They're going to start seeing the writing on the wall. And I'm not just saying here at LSU. I'm saying everywhere. And so these coaches are monitoring that every single day. And I think Brian Kelly and his staff are monitoring the transfer portal in the offensive line. They're monitoring the transfer portal at the tight end spot, maybe in the secondary a little bit. So it will be interesting to see. But I think that they're without question at least a 7-win team.
Wide open, Corin Norman, and he'll gallop into the end zone. 56 yards for an LSU touchdown.
3 consecutive long pass attempts. He finally connects on one. Good for the young guy in Walker Howard.
If you're a believer and a buyer of FPI, the Football Power Index, and the preseason Power Index, LSU is 11th nationally. That's 3rd in the SEC West behind Bama and Auburn.
Yeah, listen, I mean, the talent pool is here. This wasn't a bare cupboard.
Nope.
And let's just say nobody knew the record last year. And you based your assessment of their record in 2021 off of publicity, negativity, and media press clippings. What would you think they would have finished? 3-9?
Sure.
4-8? What were they?
6 and 7.
Yeah. So to me, you know, a lot of that is created. It wasn't. I'm not making any excuses for them, but this wasn't a 2-10 roster. This isn't an overhaul.
At the top 5 in that FPI preseason Power Index, Bama 1, no surprise. Ohio State 2, Georgia 3, Clemson 4,
Yep.
Notre Dame at 5. It's the usual suspects.
Yeah, it's the usual suspects, and it's funny too when you start to look at those teams. And this team in LSU is trying to get back to being in that category. But what's the common denominator of all those teams you just mentioned? They're really good up front on both sides of the ball. And that's another one of the reasons why you're seeing the continual run of the same teams in the college football playoff each year.
And Brian Kelly says that's it. So that puts an end to Brian Kelly's first spring game as LSU's head coach. I guess they may do one last kickoff here.
It's the one play that nobody can get hurt on in
I
this
tell you
scenario.
what, you got a 2-on-1 if you're the return team. They're not allowing returns. But if somebody wanted to go, now they won't even get the chance.
Oh, he puts it out. Kicker with the last word.
Ezekiel Mata ends things with a touchback. Brian Kelly got to do the Tiger Walk. Got to play a game here in Tiger Stadium. Yes, the results, they don't count in any ledger. Offense topples defense. The quarterback battle. That's going to be fun to watch as this unfolds. Brennan, Daniels, Nussmeier all gave this coaching staff a lot to think about. It'll be a fun off season here in Baton Rouge.